After going 19-14 last season at Indiana, Mike Woodson had a busy offseason, bringing in some of the top names from the transfer portal and bringing some life back to this team. I'm going to go through some film breakdowns on both the offensive and defensive side of IU and what they could potentially run this season. So we're going to start in the post for IU because they were top 10 in the country last season in terms of post-ups ran, while still being in the 92nd percentile of efficiency. They return a lot of the post-ups with Malik Renew, although they did lose Kalel Ware, but they bring in Umar Balu, who also posted up a lot. We're going to start with Malik Renew and kind of what he likes to get to. He was in the 82nd percentile of efficiency last season, and what he wants to do more than anything is just get to his left hand going over his right shoulder to a hook. And so a play like this is something IU would run a lot, and I expect them to run a lot again. Just some sort of decoy action kind of up top. All that they're trying to do is clear out this kind of block for Renew to come over here. Now they put Mbako here, who's probably the most respected shooter on last year's team, on the strong side, making it harder to help off and dig in. And so now as Renew is able to create his separation and his spacing there, he gets it, and immediately he's going to go to that left hand and try to get over that right hook, or to the right shoulder, and put it in. Now the other part that's interesting with Renew is that he's probably the best passing big in the Big Ten, and so he averaged a good amount of assists last season. I could see that taking even a bigger bump this season, as he might be able to facilitate more both from the perimeter and the post. But one look that IU went to a lot, and I think they will again this season, is kind of these high-low looks. And so this play right here is going to be an example of that. This is going to be a horn set, so you have two bigs at kind of the elbows, two guys in the corners, ball at the top. And this play, this is going to be horns high-low. And so what's going to happen is Cubs is going to go off Renew's screen here. Renew is going to pop. And as that's happening, Ware in this case, as I rewind, he's just going to be diving down and trying to create separation in the paints. And so now as Renew gets it here, it's an immediate high-low look. And Renew's a very good passer, is able to hit Ware in a good spot, and allows him to lead him kind of to the rim where Ware's able to just go up and finish. Now I mentioned that last play of the high-low because of what Umar Balu likes to do in the post. And so Balu was in the 74th percentile of efficiency last season, and a lot of what he did is he just wants to steal in the middle of the floor. He's like 7 foot, 7'1", and just a really big body that can play super physical. And so as you follow him right here, he's just kind of, this is what sort of transition, they push the ball up a little bit. He's just going to immediately start sealing his guy. And so now, as the other big is coming up from trailing, look again at kind of where they're at. This is out another high-low look. Now, yes, it isn't out of the horns high-low like IU ran, but it's the same concept where it's one big going to be passing to another big ceiling. This is what Balu wants to get to a lot. Seal his man down low. I mean, look at all, he has quite literally the entire bottom of the floor to work with. And so now, as they move the ball, Balu has his guys sealed. Pass can be thrown over the top. Get it to Balu. Let him go out to work. If you're enjoying, please like and subscribe, as I'll have a lot of film breakdown content coming out soon. So another area I kind of want to look at in terms of IU's offense is their pick and roll play. Last season, they were in the bottom 25th percentile of pick and roll usage. They didn't really run a ton, and they were only 31st percentile in efficiency. So they didn't run a ton. They weren't really that efficient in it. Part of it was personnel, and we'll get to that in the later part. Now, the one guy that ended up running a lot is Trey Galloway, especially with Xavier Johnson hurt throughout the season. Trey Galloway sort of became this de facto point guard and was running this a lot more. Now, what he wanted to do, high pick and roll, is Galloway wanted to assist more. And so as he's coming off, Galloway wants to get into the paint more than anything. He can get to a floater, which he has good touch on, or he wants to facilitate. Now, you can sort of see an issue already right here. Look at how many Purdue guys are surrounding. There's 4 Purdue guys right here, 1 on the weak side for defense. And so it's just really, really congested. Now, in this play specifically, Galloway is going to show good patience, and eventually, because he was able to drive, he forces the switch and now is able to dump it off into Ware. But you could see that the spacing was poor, and it just makes it really difficult to operate for IU down there. And so I bring up the usage of pick and roll specifically because in comes Miles Rice. So IU, they were in the bottom 25 percentile of pick and roll usage last season. Miles Rice was in the top 10 individually of pick and roll usage last season, and that's basically his main go-to on offense. And so what is it going to be in terms of balancing his offense and also like the post-ups and three-point shooting? But we're going to look at what Miles Rice can do in pick and roll. So this is going to be him over here. And so as he gets the ball here, fast forward a little bit, and eventually he's going to get a high pick and roll. And so what he does a good job of is as he comes off, he stays usually close to the screener, causing his defender to have to trail. And then once he has the defender trailing, he's just going to kind of probe. And so sometimes he has good athleticism where he can then burst and kind of get to the rim. He's a very good passer, which we'll talk about next. Or, like in this case, he's just going to create the little bit of separation needed and get to his jumper. Now, he didn't shoot well from 3 last season, but in terms of efficiency, he was actually pretty solid in the mid-range area, so that'll just be something that IU can go to and be like, hey, we need something from the perimeter, Miles Rice, go create. But in addition to being able to score, honestly, Rice is just a very good passer, and I expect the pick and roll usage to go up because of what Miles Rice can do. I think there's a very legit case that Miles Rice ends up being the most important player for this IU team. So this is going to be him with the ball up here. This is going to be an empty-sided pick and roll, nobody in the corners. Makes it a little bit harder for defense to be able to help. And so as he comes off, what he does great is when this defender is behind him or on his hip, he puts him in jail, and he just absolutely keeps him there. And so right there, I'll rewind as we to watch it a little bit in full speed, but as he comes off, boom, he hits the defender right there, and now it's becoming a 2-on-1 game. And so now he's just going to kind of probe, and he does a very good job of that for facilitating. He can try to get to a floater if he wants, or he can engage the big a little bit more and then find his roller, get a good shot right there. Now, if you want a more in-depth breakdown of guys like Miles Rice, Oumar Ballo, and all of the other IU newcomers, I do have a video breakdown going through each of them individually, and that'll be linked in the description. Now, before we move to the defense for IU, the one other area we have to talk about is the three-point shooting. We're number 351 in the country out of 362 in terms of three-point attempt rate, and they were number 255 in three-point percentage last season. They only returned one guy that shot over 33% from three. Now, Mbako showed flashes of being able to be this knockdown. He was only 32.6% on the season, but had these moments where he is a good shooter, and he is the prime candidate to kind of take that sophomore bump. Now, this play specifically show what I'm going to be interested to see if Mbako is able to develop. Oftentimes, Mbako is just a standstill, toes on the line type guy where he's just going to catch and shoot. But in a play like this, can he develop to where right here, he's going to be running off these pin downs? Can IU kind of add this where, okay, now you're getting separation for a shooter, putting the defense more pressure on them, and then getting a clean look for a shooter right there? I'm going to be monitoring that this season for sure. IU needed shooting, and they went and got a shooter. They bring in Luke Goody, who was 61 for 157 from 3 last season, only took 22 twos. Like, this is a guy that is going to be on the perimeter, on the three-point line. He's more of a stretch 4. If he does have to play the 3, it's going to be a little bit of an interesting fit, but potential is there. He is more of a standstill guy, more of a standstill three-point shooter, kind of like Mbako was last year. And so, although he doesn't maybe have as much movement shooting, he's still going to fit in well for what I think IU wants to run, especially if IU does run more pick and rolls. And so this is going to be Goody here, as he's going to kind of just flare out to the strong side corner. And so, yes, Miles Rice isn't as explosive as Terrence Shannon. Nobody is in college, but this type of play of where this is like Miles Rice and this is, say, Ballo or Renew, and once Miles Rice is able to get downhill, if you guys have Goody in a spot where, like right here, it's strong side corner. So now once his defender helps even a little bit, boom, he's going to have a good open look. If Goody's on this weak side corner, then maybe you have like the other big kind of right here, and you're putting pressure on that weak side defender too. But he can just be a guy, you can space out, put him on the perimeter, and get looks from 3. Now we're going to switch to the defensive side of the ball for IU, and the first area that we want to look at is the rim protection. IU is number 23 in allowing the fewest rim attempts in the country last season. They forced a lot of perimeter shots, and there's a big reason for that, and one of them was Kalel Ware. Team shot 4% worse at the rim with Ware when he was on the floor compared to off, although there was a little bit more shots taken near it. But what IU wanted to do is take away the paint in the rim more than anything. And so right here, high pick and roll. Ware's going to be in drop coverage. That's going to be the base coverage for pretty much every IU big, maybe some hedges thrown in, but generally it's going to be just this drop coverage where Ware's going to be dropping back, and his goal is to keep the ball handler and the roller in front of him. And so as that's happening, Cupps does a decent job here of actually getting back and getting through. But now as here, there's a drive. He's driving into Cupps, and since Cupps has recovered, nobody really has to help, which we will highlight in a later clip. But then Ware's able just to kind of roam, and as being 7 foot, 7'1", really lanky, he just had really good shot blocking instincts, and that helped protect the rim a ton. Now with Ware gone, Oumar Ballo is going to be the prime candidate for taking a lot of this role. Now Malik Renew can protect the rim some, but it probably isn't his strong suit. Ballo has shown he can be a very good rim protector. Same thing here. Ballo's going to be guarding the big up in high pick and roll, and Ballo's going to be in that same drop coverage that I just showed. And so as the ball handler comes off, he is going to, all he's worrying about is keeping the ball and the roller in front of him. And And so as he keeps walking back, guard Boswell here does a decent job of getting in. Arizona's kind of digging in a little bit too. But at the end of the day, Ballo is going to be the one there that's able to help protect the rim, go up, get the block, and that's just going to be what he's going to do for IU's defense. Now, I mentioned very good rim protection. They didn't allow a lot of attempts at the rim, but they did allow a ton of attempts from three. They were 307th in defensive three-point attempt rate, aka they allowed a lot of threes. Part of it was by design. They wanted to take away the paint and the rim more than anything, but there's also, throughout the entire season, a lot of just miscommunications defensively and just not great personnel matchups that allowed teams to get good looks from three against IU. So this play right here, Ohio State, they're running kind of their floppy action, which is where Jamison Battle here can either run off a single pin down or a staggered pin down, and just kind of watch Mbako, Galloway, Renew, look at their kind of communication. So as Mbako's coming down, Thornton is coming down all the way to screen. And so here, Mbako's pointing for a switch for Galloway. Galloway doesn't notice. And now Renew, who isn't the best on the perimeter defensively, he's the one that ends up having to go out and close out. I mean, you can see both right here, IU guards, they're both in the paint, while arguably the best shooter in the Big Ten last season is wide open from three. Renew has to try to cover, but it's too late. Another area is especially early in the season, and I think IU got away from it a little bit more towards the end and improved, but with Renew playing the four, he's kind of this 4-5 tweener. Offensively, I've already talked about how elite he can be, but defensively, it is an interesting problem. At times, he isn't quite big enough to maybe be a true rim protector, but he isn't quick enough necessarily to really play on the perimeter. So on the areas or the times when he is going to play at the four, I'm hoping it isn't a ton, but he's still going to get 10 to 15 minutes for sure at the four. What exactly is going to happen there? Like in this play right here, this is early in the season. Renew on this, so pick and roll, empty pick and roll. Renew's going to dig down, so he's going to help on this drive. Now, part of this is IU's design. Like I've said, they want to help at kind of the nail area. They want to force shots from the perimeter. They want to take away the paint and the rim. However, with Renew being the guy, he loses track of his guy. There's not great communication right here. You see Galloway trying to point something out. But now look at how much space Renew thinks he has to recover. Now, yes, communicate well, and this problem's probably solved, but this is a lot of space for Renew to have to cover, really any of the fours, and so just that overhelp at times allowed those threes. And kind of related to it all too, especially out of pick and roll, is that IU struggled against pick and rolls. They were in the bottom 15th percentile in defending them last season. A lot of it came off kickouts, or a lot of them came on jumpers, but I think the guard play especially struggled at times to really be able to get through defensively. Losing Johnson hurt last season, but still, I think it was a big area that they struggled, and it just put so much more pressure on the rest of their defense that eventually caused breakdowns. So here, Maryland's going to eventually get to a high pick and roll here, where it's going to be kind of in that drop coverage. But notice Cupps here. On a play earlier that I mentioned, where Ware was able to get the block, Cupps does a good job of getting through and kind of staying with his guy. But watch him on this one. He's going to be caught right way behind, and then Deshaun Harris-Smith does a good job of kind of putting him in jail and keeping him on the back. And so here, Ware's going to stay with Reese Moore, and eventually, this is basically a pretty wide open layup for Deshaun Harris-Smith. So there's just, I think, struggles from the guards at times to really get through screens, put more pressure on the defense, especially the bigs, and if they weren't perfect, then it was going to be a bucket. Now, they do bring in Miles Rice, and also I think some of their guards can just be put in better spots defensively. I think there's a lot of hope for this IU defense to improve. But then Miles Rice especially, I think he's a very, very good defender. Watch how he gets through the screen, and this is against Kanan Carlisle, also IU commit. Look at him just kind of get through that. He fights over the screen, so he's caught a little bit, but now he's eventually going to fight to really get back into the play, and now he's going to fully contest this shot. And so I think Rice he has a really good mix of being explosive and good athleticism that allows him to kind of navigate these screens well, get back into the play. Now he forces the pass there, and then eventually, just because of the big just losing the ball, he's able to get the steal. Rice also has good hands, and it relates back to I really think Rice ends up being the most important player for this team. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe, and click here for more IU preview breakdowns.